any time some sort of democracy. We won the independence, then later on we lived in a quiet dictatorship for decades. And in these decades, people have paid a very high price, whether from the left or from the liberals or from the right, people have been fighting against this dictatorship. And this dictatorship that lasted for decades is not only based on having power and neglecting other people. It was based on corruption. It was a very corrupt regime that tried to use repression in order to gain more profit of the country. With the help, unfortunately, with international institutions, with the help of the IMF, with the help of the World Bank, which was talking always of the Tunisian miracle. That Tunisian miracle that has left behind 25% of people who were poor, that had left behind 50% of the country and underprivileged, that had left almost all the business on the coastline. So people revolted and kept revolting against this system. And it was not much a question. That's why I put the question, is there democracy without social justice? The main cause of the revolution was social justice. People like to live with dignity. That's why the slogans of the revolutions were freedom, democracy, equality, gender equality, but at the same time, dignity and social justice. Dignity, which means in the Tunisian revolution that the person leads a decent life with his life secure, with a decent job, and lives quite well, accepted. Then, the problem with that revolution is that it was not led by any political party. Why? Because during the repression, no political party has flourished. So it was led mainly by civil society movements, and it was led by powerful trade union movement, which managed to synchronize together the national question and also the questions of the workers, high pay, limited hours of work, etc. This is really very important in the history of Tunisia. And civil society played an important role before the revolution, but it played an important role after the revolution in order to secure the democracy. And when I was asked before many times in Seoul or in many other places, why did you get the Nobel Prize? I say, because we are respected by the people. First of all, because we don't have any partisan politics, and second, because we have played the role of pacifying, try to pacify what is happening and to lead a revolution that was peaceful, and at the same time, later on, to keep with this peaceful way of dealing with things. And when we have got problems with political parties, mainly with the Islamist party, etc., with extremism in Tunisia, the civil society intervened in order to counterbalance the situation and to lead, later on, negotiations that led to the transition to succeed. Now, why Tunisia is different from the Arab world? The Arab Spring didn't succeed so far. But all the people in the Arab world have got the same worries, the same problems. They all are asking for democracy, for human rights, for social justice. But the fact is that these countries do not have any civil society that is very strong, that could help. Second, they didn't have political parties. Third, they have got ethnic problems in many places between Shiites, and Sunnis, and many other problems that exist in many countries. And the other question is that many countries have got tribal problems. Now, even when I speak of my country, I can try to understand why Tunisia is now, even the protests now are very peaceful. We have got tradition, even the independence was got with peaceful means. There were not much fights against the French colonization. There were negotiations. So this negotiation is part of the history of Tunisia. Second, even Islam in Tunisia is different from the other countries. Islam in Tunisia has adapted to the cultures of Tunisia, to the cultures that existed before it. And it has adapted, it has become more tolerant and accepted by people. Now, if you speak of popular Islam that exists in Tunisia, popular Islam is never intervenes with the belief of people. And that's why when we have the constitution, people accepted the idea of freedom of conscience, freedom of belief. And this is the most important thing in the, and probably the most advanced constitution in the Arab world, because you don't find in any Arab country constitution where you have the equality between men and women enshrined in the constitution. Second, the freedom of belief, the freedom of conscience, all the freedoms are enshrined in the constitution. And another thing, all the rights, the environmental rights, the social and economic rights, they are all enshrined in the constitution. And this is very important constitution that reflects the demands of the people, that reflects the ambition of the people, that reflects the dignity that people were asking for. Now, the problem now is how to implement those rights into a very difficult situation. In a very difficult situation on the regional level, where you have on the border of Tunisia a civil war in Libya, where you have the situation in Syria, when you have other countries that are not really asking for the progress of Tunisia. And when you have international institutions who are giving you loans, but at the same time they are asking you to do what they like to do, to implement what they think they should be right. And the first thing they implemented is that the government stopped giving jobs. The second is that the government gets rid of all the civil welfare, health care, education, free education, etc. And then we have a difficult situation in which people are ambitious to progress, to have what they dreamt of, because nobody dreamt that Ben Ali would go so quickly. But once the revolution happened, people began to ask, oh, okay, this is a new world that is going to happen. This is a dream that is going to be realized. But then later on, there is a bit of deception, because this deception is related to following the same liberal economy that existed in the time of Ben Ali, first thing. Second thing is that these international institutions are still playing the role that exists in the time of Ben Ali. Third is that the government is torn between the demands and the ambition of people to implement what they call the social justice, what they think should be a social justice, what they have fought for, because we have got martyrs, hundreds of martyrs who gave their lives in the interior regions in order to have a better life, in order to have jobs, in order to get rid of poverty, in order to have infrastructure, and to live with a certain equality. All this has led to a bit of deception in the minds of people. People think, okay, but what we did this for all, to reach this only? Yes, there is democracy. Yes, there are human rights. Yes, there are free and transparent elections. But the question I put, is there democracy without human rights? Without social justice? No, because our democracy now, I think, is in a crossroad. Now, when I speak to my Western colleagues, etc., they say, oh, but Tunisia is different from Syria. It's different from, yes, it's different, but it's different in its culture, it's different in its Islam, it's different also in its resilient, strong civil society. And if this young democracy would not succeed, would not establish what we are thinking as the good for the country, which is social justice, then we are going to lead, then this democracy risks to be lost in the turmoil of the region. Now, but social justice, this is what I like also to say, social justice is not only the problem of Tunisia, it's the problem of, it's also what the Candlelight movement fought for. It's when you fight against corruption, when you fight for the sovereignty of the people, you are fighting against exclusion. Now, this inclusive thing is what we are looking for, not only in Tunisia, but in the world. Nowadays, I think, to save democracy and its institutions from any type of populism, like what happened, remember, in the 1930s and the 1940s, when democracy was threatened by, and then there was a war that killed millions of people by a certain type of populism that is rising. If we don't save our democracy, then we are going to come back to the point where there is again repressive regimes that are going to come back, not only in Arab countries, not only in Asia, but in Europe and in America. Look what is happening now in the United States of America. Look to the notion now a leader gets to power on basis of two things: against Islamism, and the second thing, against Mexicans to come to America. No ideology, no program, nothing. Look what is happening in Europe. Look at the last elections in Italy and in many other countries. Now, this democracy, these institutions that have been established through history, they risk to be lost in a type of extreme populism, and which is going to lead to violence. So what I like to say to you, and the message I have for you, is this: I am happy to be here, and I am happy to be with these very kind people and welcoming people, with these really very big names of social movements, etc. But at the same time, I believe that we are going to fight together for a certain social justice in order to save democracy all over the world, not only in Tunisia. And believe me, now I told you that nobody dreamt that a regime as repressive as the regime of Ben Ali we would get rid of it so quickly. But that was a dream that we were thinking that the next generations are going to realize. Now we realize that dream. No, we didn't expect that. What we get from that is the following: is that all the dreams can be realized. And the dreams, provided that there are people who work for it, who are ready to sacrifice for it. And we, people in civil society, we are ready to sacrifice for that. Not only in Tunisia, but all over the world, in order to make the world a better place. Thank you so much.